Pulangayati Girim Yakripatamam Vande Shiguru Dimatarinam. You don't have a mic?
On its way.
Oh, that little box?
Not sure you went to pick one.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. What I think we should do today, looking at this audience, I don't know if this one works, maybe. Did you plug it in today?
Yeah, one of them. This was green.
No, it's supposed to be blue, I think. I think we should do questions. I don't have a topic, I can pick a topic, but I'd rather you ask questions about anything.
You said afterlife insurance.
After life insurance, yeah. That was this morning's class, was about afterlife insurance.
We have only the hands.
Where's two hands? 3 hands.
We already have 3 questions.
Yes, please.
I will translate for Mama.
Okay.
Махарадж, Харе Кришна. У меня вопрос по поводу джапы. Я прослушала курс джапа.
My mother has a question about japa. She has listened to your course about it.
И все очень понятно. Моя джапа меняется.
Everything is very clear. Her japa is changing because of this.
Но вопрос такой. Есть ли какие-то критерии, чтобы понимать, что джапа уже хорошая, что она становится еще лучше?
The question is, what are the criteria by which you can judge that your japa is getting better?
Как я это могу почувствовать? Как я это могу узнать?
How can she feel that it's getting better?
How could you not know it's getting better? If it is. You like to chant. You want to chant. You don't. 16's not enough. You want more. That's how you know it's not getting better. It's the opposite. The opposite. 16's a lot. You don't want to chant. And you don't like it.
16 is little.
16's nothing. That's for losers. At least 16. I don't want to offend anyone who's not chanting 16. But Prabhupada, it's like, imagine you were in the spiritual world today, like the whole day you spent with Krishna in the spiritual world, and you were, every moment was ecstasy, and then you came back to this planet, and people are saying, "Oh, chanting 16 rounds, that's so hard, that's so much." What would you say? That's nothing. In the spiritual world, it's 24/7. Well, there's no hours there, but anyway, that's all we do: chant, glorify Krishna, and we're in ecstasy. So Prabhupada was always teaching us from the highest platform and then comparing how we thought to that platform. So we say 16's a lot and he says it's nothing. We say it's hard to follow principles and he says it's not. So, because that's his experience and our experience, he doesn't want to go with our experience, he wants to take us to the reality. And the reality is that's nothing. Because if you think about it, that's only 1/12 of your day. 2 hours. You have 24 hours, you give 2 to Krishna, you've got 22 left for yourself. That's still a lot, right? I don't have time to chant, Well, who gave you the time in the first place? Who gave you the time to misuse? Krishna gave it to you, so at least give him back some. Right? Yes? Like they say, it's not how much money you give to God, it's It's not how much of your money you give to God, it's how much of His money you won't give back to Him. So it's not my time, it's His time. How much of His time do you want to give back to Him? Well, I can chant 1 round a day. I can give 10 minutes back to Him out of 24. That's not good. Is it? I don't think so. If you were with Prabhupada and you could see him chanting Hare Krishna, then all of what I said would be understood just by seeing him. Seeing him relish the holy name. If you listen to Prabhupada's chanting on a recording, you can tell that he's experiencing something we don't experience, that he's feeling Krishna's presence. And if you're feeling Krishna, that's another symptom. You feel Krishna's presence when you're chanting. That's how you know it's good. Yeah. So the greatest gift you get in spiritual life is an experience of transcendental pleasure when you're chanting, when you're serving, when you're studying. That's the gift, and that gift you get through some sacrifice, some austerity, some following of principles. And then when you chant, it's a uniquely blissful experience. That's the reward. So if you don't do certain things, you won't get that reward, and then you won't want to chant, you won't like it. It'll just be a burden. It'll feel like a burden, right? Like if you're married and you don't love one another, it's just a burden. It's like, well, why are we together? We don't even like one another. We don't even talk. So some devotees come to that position with their japa. Why am I even chanting? I don't like it. I don't like Krishna in this form. I like him in the form of gulab jamuns, but not in the holy name. Like that. But that's a consequence of not following other practices or principles and not making an effort to properly chant. So it requires effort, that's for sure. Have you ever finished chanting and felt relieved? I don't have to chant anymore. Yeah. Krishna, you're cool, but I'm not like into spending more time than I have to with you. I mean, that's what we're saying. Yes? If you say, I'm happy not to chant, Krishna is in his name. So you're saying, Krishna, I'm happy not to spend time with you now. In your Nam incarnation. I'll spend time in your Gulab incarnation, but your Nam incarnation. But it's all absolute. So when you're a little more elevated, then everything is blissful. Not just the gulabs. Or your favorite, whatever your favorite prasadam is. So the next question, how do we know we're chanting bad rounds? When we don't want to chant, when we don't have a taste. When we are distracted, it means we're bored. Doesn't it? Why else would you be distracted? Were you distracted during the Maha-Avatar movie? Were you looking at your phone during the movie? Scrolling, on Instagram? I don't think so. Distraction is a sign of boredom. Typical picture of the student staring out the window in class, totally bored, daydreaming. Okay, so we may not have a deep taste for chanting, but we have to practice and we have to try, and the taste will come. And that's the reward of your effort, that you will feel Krishna's presence in his name. And you'll feel fortunate that you have his name, and you'll be just full of gratitude while you're chanting. That's the sign of good chanting. Thank you, Krishna, for giving me this holy name. I feel like the most fortunate person in the universe that I have it. That's how we should feel. That's how you feel when you're chanting well. When you're not chanting well, you feel like, why do I have to do this? Anyone of you ever feel that? Like, why? I can't. Isn't there something else? Or why so much? Why not less? Why 4 principles? Why not 3? Why not 2.5? Why no onions and garlic and no taste in my food? You know, these are all the prices you pay. It's self-discipline, and you do it, and it works. You know, we have a saying, and I don't know if you have the saying in here, but in America, there's a saying: if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So, like, you have that here? Yeah, so it's like, I'm going to sit down for half hour, 2 hours, 2.5, and chant. Might as well do it well, because I'm going to do it anyway. Right? I'm going to spend the time, so why should I waste it? You spend 2 hours washing dishes, and they're all still dirty. You use cold water and no soap, and it's all full of heat, caked on, almost frozen on. In 2 hours, it's still on. What's the point? Yeah. All right, thank you. Is that okay? Yes.
I don't know if it's a good question, but is it possible that you will share with us the way you came to Krishna consciousness?
The way I came. I don't need, but they need.
Okay, sticking to the platform, yeah.
Okay.
I wrote a Vyas Puja offering about it. So, when the movement started, it first was New York, and then Montreal, because Prabhupada had to leave America and go to Canada to get his visa. He couldn't be in America, and then Mukunda was going to go to India, and he's from Oregon, and he was going to the West Coast, and Prabhupada said, can you start a temple before you go to India? So there were 3 temples, and then, so you had San Francisco, New York, Montreal, then there was Boston, and then there was Los Angeles, maybe 67, 68. And I grew up in Los Angeles. So when I grew up, maybe we're looking at maybe by 68, not even 68. So I left Los Angeles at 68. So when I was growing up, 67, 68, yeah. Maybe there were like 7 temples in the world. And one of them was a 5-minute drive, or maybe 4 minutes from my house.
And your age at that time?
At that time, 17, 18. So occasionally I would see devotees chanting their rounds, because it was, maybe a 15-minute walk from the temple. So they're going to japa walk, and then jumping into my neighborhood. And then I was in Haight-Ashbury in 1967. I saw they weren't wearing dhoti; it was just shaved head. It kind of stood out because everyone had long hair. And then in Hollywood, I saw them chanting. And then there was that movie Hair, and they were chanting. So I was pretty much surrounded by it. It was like, okay. Then I went away to university, and there was a temple there, and they were chanting on campus. So it's like everywhere I went, from the time I was like 17, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So one time I saw them in Hollywood, and it was like the first kirtan I saw. And I stopped, and I was like, wow. And my friend's like, let's go. And I go, no, I don't want to go, let's stay. And the devotee gave me a mantra card, but I never came. But I think the most interesting, one of the most interesting parts of the story was, I think that that Krishna allowed me to do everything I needed to do to be totally materially exhausted by the age of 19. Like I didn't, it's like I did this, did that. It's like, okay, I'm good, I've done it all. So that was good. And, one of the highlights, I think, was, it's really interesting. Maybe we can make a movie, I don't know if it's that interesting, but a friend of mine says, we have some mescaline. Mescaline is like a mushroom, I think, I don't know. And my friends and I are going to take some, and we have a beach house somewhere, a couple of hours from where we were living. He said, "Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah." So I took it, and I just felt like really happy, felt like I just won the lottery or something, just really happy. And I was thinking, there's got to be a way to experience this without drugs, because this is like stupid, Feel happy when you take a drug and it wears off and you're back to your old miserable self. What's the point of that? So the whole time I was experiencing this happiness from this drug, I wasn't really hallucinating or anything, just feeling happy. I was thinking, I have to find out how to do this, because I know you can do this. I'm sure you can do this without drugs. So I became like Maharaj Parikshit, who was looking for Krishna. I was looking for happiness without drugs, which was kind of revolutionary in 1969 in San Francisco. It wasn't that everybody, we were looking for enlightenment through LSD and other psychedelics. And so Hridayananda Maharaj, who was then Bhakti Howard, arranged at the university where I was going to school, he arranged for the professor to be allowed to teach Bhagavad Gita as a university course. So it would be a philosophy course, and he could teach it, and it would be considered an outside study course. So for your outside study, you go to the Hare Krishna temple twice a week and you listen to Bhagavad Gita. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. But I was walking down, there's a street, it's called Telegraph Avenue. It's kind of a famous street in this town called Berkeley, which is near San Francisco, often called Berkeley because it's very crazy there. And I walked into a bookstore, bookshop. I guess you call it bookshop here, not store, shop, or whatever. Yeah, and that was weird because I never was reading books. I was just philosophizing my own ideas. I didn't like to read. I was very into music and physical things. And I didn't like sit around and read. And I'm in a bookstore. How did that happen? That's weird, isn't it? So everything that I needed to do to be ready to become Krishna conscious, I'd done. I'm now in this mood. I have to find a way, some meditation process, something. And now I'm in a bookstore. And I'm walking around the bookstore and I'm talking to myself, why are you in this bookstore? And the answer was, I don't know, but you're here, so look around. And I picked a book, of all the books, I picked a book off the shelf. Yeah, this would make a good movie. I don't know the music. Why are you in the bookstore? This conversation's going on with myself. You don't read books. Why are you? There must be a reason. Pull the book off the shelf. This book looks cool. And there's a little voice inside me that said, you should read this book. It's like, okay. It wasn't a little voice, a pretty big voice. And then, like, Krishna loves me. That was the Bhagavad Gita. And he loved me so much that I didn't have any money on me, because it wasn't Prabhupada's Gita. And like the next day I went on campus and there's Bhakti Howard advertising his Bhagavad Gita class with a table full of Bhagavad Gitas, and I'm a student there. That's like a no-brainer. You get 4 units, which is as many units as you can get. It's an accredited class in philosophy. It's like, okay, sign me up. So I was writing about this how I came, and I was writing it and then reading, and it's like, wait a minute. It was like I was on an escalator. And Krishna's just like, you're on an escalator and things come to you, were coming to me. I didn't have to do anything. So it was like, I looked at all the events. There were other events before that kind of got me ready, satisfied my needs. There I was, going to the temple twice a week as a class. No homework, just read Bhagavad Gita, no tests, no final exams, no term papers, just go to the temple. And they didn't even check if you were reading. So I got an A because I went to every class. So when I was in university, I was thinking, I have no idea why I'm here, and I don't really want to be here, but I need a reason to leave. So about 6 weeks into studying Bhagavad Gita, then I said yes. So this is what I want to do. So then I drove home. I had a car. My parents gave me a car. Well, let me tell you about the classes they were giving. It's quite interesting. This is 1969, it means the movement was incorporated in 1966, or 66. 3 years after incorporation. It was actually 3 years after incorporation. The first year of the movement, it's not really so much, so it's really pretty early on. And the people giving let's see. So, this was October when I took the class. One of the devotees giving the class, Bhakti Howard, just moved into the temple in August. So he's, the person teaching you is 2 months. And they only said like 4 or 5 things in every class. You're not the body, you're spirit, soul, you're a servant of Krishna. You live like a dog. All you do is eat, sleep, mate, and defend, and you suffer. You're suffering. Like every class was those same 6 things rearranged in a different order and maybe different details. And that's what I heard for 10 weeks. And every time they'd say you're suffering, I'd say, I'm not suffering at all. I only have 2 classes at the university. I have 3 classes at the university. One is like a class in Italian or something, which doesn't take much. One's a music class and one's this class, which is no homework. And the music class virtually had no homework. I was like, I'm not suffering. What are you talking about? My parents pay for my rent. I have a car. I have 2 good guitars. Play, music with my friends. I'm living the dream. And every class, you're suffering, you're living like a dog. And after 6 weeks, I was like, oh, now I get it. There's birth and old age, disease and death. That is suffering. So it took me a while. It was a bit dull. Yeah. Anyway, so you have the same experience. You have to hear it a while before you understand. What do you mean I'm suffering? I'm not suffering. And so the semester was over in December, and then I went back to tell my parents the good news that I was going to be shaving my head, wearing diapers, and jumping up and down on the street every day, and dropping out of the best public university in America, if not the world. They were thrilled to hear that. They were so happy that I was going to become a devotee. They were thanking me, and they were so proud of you. That was so hard. They couldn't believe it. And nobody knew what the Hare Krishna movement was. They didn't know. They were okay. They said, why don't you just stay in school? You can do your religion, because they just thought it's just a thing. It's just going to be a passing fad. But, so I go to the temple. I call my friends because I'm all, enthusiastic. I found the truth. I call my friends, come to the temple. We go to the temple. It's amazing. As soon as kirtan starts, the devotees are up dancing. It's so enthusiastic. I go back the next morning, call my friend. You want to come with me? He goes, no way, I'm not going back. I said, why, you didn't like it? He goes, I liked it. Why don't you want to come back? If I go back, I'll never leave. I'm not going back. That's what it was like, the temple. Unfortunately for him, when I went back the next morning, they said, Prabhupada's coming to the airport now, do you want to come? So then I got to see Prabhupada. That was sometime in December. And I had already decided I'd become a devotee, but I didn't want to become a devotee in Los Angeles. It was so close to my home and my friends, and like every street you go, I did something stupid on. So I just thought, and I knew all the devotees in Berkeley, and I thought, I'll go back there. So, the real reason I joined is because of two women. So there was two women coming to the temple at the same time I was coming. And I knew I wanted to join, but it's like, you're going to shave your head, give up everything, sleep on the floor, It's like, I want to do it, but, I was procrastinating. So I was coming to the temple, and both those women joined. Like, at the time I was thinking of joining, they both moved in. I was like, damn. If they did it, I'm going to do it. So, I would have done it anyway, but I did it sooner. So, and then I had the fortune of, so I joined in January then. So we have February, March, April, May. So 4 months later, I joined some devotees to open the first temple in San Jose, Silicon Valley. So that was a real honor. And then from there I went to San Francisco, and Prabhupada came there for Rath Yatra. That was amazing. San Francisco Rath Yatra was like off the charts amazing in those days. 10,000 people, but they're all chanting. With devotees, without devotees. And then you go through the park, starts at noon, and you go through the whole park, Golden Gate Park. It's a pretty big park. I don't know how many miles it was, but it took us 6 hours to get through the park. So 6 hours. You can walk 3 miles. You can walk like 3 miles in an hour. So, it was probably 15 miles, and you could look it up, Golden Gate Park, how long it is. Mm-hmm. So we got to the beach at 6 and took prasadam, and there was a hall at the beach, right at the beach where it ended. There was a hall, and there was kirtan there, and Prabhupada was there for kirtan. Mm-hmm. And after chanting all day, we went in the hall, and everyone, I swear, every single person their feet were not on the ground, and Prabhupada was there leading the kirtan. And then, so I just come to San Francisco, I'm staying in the temple, and we would go to bed at 11 o'clock at night, and get up at 4. For those of you not good in math, that's 5 hours of sleep. Try sleeping 5 hours a night for a while. See what happens. I can tell you what happens. You sit down and count to 3, you're out. It won't last more than 3 seconds. And when it's time to take rest, 1, 2, you're out. And there was one shower. And you'd line up. Shower was at the end of the kitchen, you'd line up. And you get like 60 seconds because there's 25 of us. And then we would go in Harinam every day. Oh, this is interesting. You'll never hear this from anybody else, I guess, but it's interesting. We were kind of crazy. We didn't really know what to do. So our schedule was, we have Mangal Arti at 4:30. And then 5 o'clock we had breakfast. The reason was because we had to have lunch at 10:30 because we would try to go out by 11 on Harinam. So we had half a cup of yogurt, 8 chickpeas, half an orange and half an apple. That was breakfast after Mangalati. Then 10:30 we had lunch, which was dal and chapatis. All the dal you want, all the chapatis you want. That's it. Nothing else. There are probably vegetables in it. Then we go out and chant all day. And then on the weekend, we would go back out, like 8 o'clock. And we'd go to a theater. We chant all night in like the tourist area, and then about 12 or 1 o'clock, the movie Hair would let out. And in the movie Hair, they chant Hare Krishna.
Oh, yeah.
So the people would come out of the movie, and there we were chanting Hare Krishna. I think they thought it was part of the movie. And they'd go up to them and collect donations, and in like 20 minutes, we collected more money than we like collect all week at that. But we would get back at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And we do the same thing again on Saturday. All day, come back, have a class or something, eat something, eat a snack, and go back out to 1 a.m.
And on Sunday already the Sunday feast?
Yeah, on Sunday, you'd like shave your head, wash your clothes. No, we didn't wash our own clothes. We do something, can't remember. I don't think we went. No, we might have gone to the park. Yeah. Oh, you know how I became a devotee? I figured it out after I read Lilamrita. There was a place in Golden Gate Park where Prabhupada used to chant. It was called Hippie Hill, where the hippies like all hung out. And when I was visiting Haight-Ashbury in 1967, I slept in Golden Gate Park, and I think I slept on Hippie Hill, and that's why I became a devotee. Or something good in my last life. But that's not the real answer why I became a devotee. I don't think it's the real answer why any of us became devotees. It's we already were devotees in our last life. Otherwise, how could we be here now? Right? Like you can't just... Any of you just came to Krishna consciousness and said, this is it, I'm looking for this. Wow, sign me up. That's because you were a devotee already. And all your friends are like, you're crazy. You know, like, whatever. This is what I'm doing. You lose your job, whatever. Husband leaves you, wife leaves you, whatever. I have to do this. This is what I'm looking for. It means we were devotees. It wouldn't happen that way if we weren't. Yes?
I once heard that because of what you just said, that we were devotees in our last life, that therefore in this life we should find out at what point we didn't make it, why we didn't make it,
Yeah.
how to know that.
I think you can just tell what you're struggling with, and that's probably why you didn't make it the last time. Whatever that is, that's like a big, whatever you find to be a big obstacle in your bhakti, it's probably why.
Sometimes I find it difficult really to, it sounds a bit stupid maybe, but to really see what are my obstacles, like...
Yeah. Well, sometimes you don't know until you try to go a little higher. Push yourself a little, then you see. Like, try to raise your standard of purity a little bit. Then sometimes you can tell. But
Sorry, can you say that again? I didn't understand.
like
the last
she's
one.
saying, I don't know what my obstacles are. And I'm saying, sometimes you don't know unless you try harder. And then it's like you push yourself a little, and then you see there's resistance or difficulty, and then you understand, oh yeah, this is hard. I never pushed myself that much to know. You know? But we all, it's all the same thing: lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy. That's, so one of those, if not all, or why we're here, one is stronger. Something you haven't given up. Something you find that's always comes around, recycles, that's a problem. You think you conquered it and it comes back. Hello, I'm still here. You thought you got rid of me, but you didn't. Something just upsets you and you lose it. Like, I thought I was over that. So, but according to Shastra, it's pride. It's lust and pride and greed. That's why we're here. want to be Krishna. But they, obviously there's specifics for each of us that are more challenging. But, if you ask Prabhupada, he would say, you don't have to know details. It's there in Shastra. This is why we're here. And in your own struggles in this life, whatever you find difficult for you, whatever doesn't come easy, let's say, that's probably because that's what was going on in the last life. And whatever comes easy, probably because you conquered it then, or you overcame it then. Some people come into this world, they're really humble. It's just like, they're not even devotees, and they're like humble, like the most humble. If they joined ISKCON, they'd be in the top 5 most humble people, and they're not even devotees. It's like, and it's not like a problem for them. They do some amazing service, and they don't get any recognition. Like no problem for them. They're like, they don't complain. They're happy. It's okay. Don't worry. Someone else says, I didn't get any recognition. I'm finished with this movement. Right? Isn't it? Sometimes. So that means it's been cultivated in the past. But how we should think now is like, well, what I'm cultivating now, what I don't overcome now, I may have to come back to overcome it. So I might as well overcome it now. Have to overcome it anyway. Right? So hard. Yeah, well, whatever. Just have to overcome it.
Can you give an example?
I always give the example of buying an expensive car. And when you ask for the price and it's $300,000, you say, that's so expensive. And they say, yeah, it's a good car. So an example of what we're going to have to.
Obstacle.
Well, it's like if there's anything that's getting in the way of becoming a pure devotee, or whatever that is. There's a game. Maybe you've seen it. My daughter showed it to me. You have. I forget exactly how it works, but you have. It's a digital game, and you have like a square here, and you have objects here, and you can pull them in to different places. I forget why. And I was thinking, well, that's really cool. We have a picture of you and a picture of Krishna, and we'd have all the anarthas and say, well, which ones are getting in between you and Krishna? Of course, we'll all say, all of them. All right, what are your big ones? Lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, lack of discipline, impatience, intolerance, resentment, and then we have to pull them in. Because, you don't, a lot of times you just think, oh, these are anarthas, they're problems. But it's not just problems, it's things that are getting in the way between you and Krishna. That's what they are. So you can play the game in your mind. What do you think the biggest ones are? What are your biggest problems?
How to overcome fear.
Fear of what?
Death.
Everything?
Everything.
Face it. Walk into it.
Pardon me?
Walk into it, depending on Krishna.
Okay.
You saw the movie?
No, I didn't.
And when you see the movie, I think it answers that question.
Okay.
Well, for Prahlad Maharaj, he had, Prabhupada explains that Prahlad Maharaj was not afraid because one of the symptoms of a surrendered devotee is you always know Krishna will protect you. And you always know Krishna will empower you to do something you may be afraid of doing. Or you think you can't do, you don't know how. Krishna will help you. So either it's some danger, he'll protect you. If it's some service or some situation where you don't feel capable, he'll give you ability. And also, in terms of service, there's no failure. The only failure in service is the failure to do it. But if you try your best, there's no failure. So that's, you shouldn't, You shouldn't not do something because you think you'll fail, because you don't know until you do it if you'll fail, and if you tried your best and you failed, then it doesn't matter. You just shouldn't try something where if you mess up, other people will suffer. That's a different thing. But if it's just like some service and there's not a big consequence if you fail, it's just like, nobody's going to get a book if I don't go out. So if I go out and nobody gets a book, it's not a failure. At least I tried. And I showed people, 100 people got to see Krishna's picture. And I gave out 20 mantra cards, so it's not a failure. When Prabhupada started this movement in America, nothing was happening. And someone in India said, you're just a failure. But not in those words, but basically they said that. Prabhupada said, no. You're not a failure if you try. So I think that's important. You know Prabhupada's joke about why he came to America? Because Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Prabhupada's spiritual master, sent disciples to London. And so Prabhupada was asked, why didn't you go to London? He said, and the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta went to London, but they failed in establishing anything substantial. And they came back, having spent time and money, but nothing to really show for it. Prabhupada said, my godbrothers went to London and failed. So I will, instead of going to London and fail, I will go to New York and fail. So Prabhupada, in other words, he was willing to fail. It wasn't 100% sure he would be successful. But if Prabhupada went to New York and failed, it wouldn't be a failure because at least he tried to execute the order of his guru. So that's not a failure, right? Now, let's look at Prabhupada before he came to America. He was trying to establish Krishna consciousness in India, and time after time it wasn't happening. And that whole time, Prabhupada took sannyas in 1959. He came here in 1965. So we have 6 years, and that 6 years, I think he only initiated one disciple. And did not establish one temple. That looks like a failure, doesn't it? So you could say, up to 1965, Prabhupada was a failure, published back to Godhead, but didn't distribute that many, if you look at it that way. But when he got on that boat, for sure he was a success. Before any success happened, when he got on that boat, that was huge. Because nobody had ever done it before. Nobody was going to do it. Nobody even believed it was possible. He had so much faith in the order of his guru, and so much devotion and compassion. So when you see that picture, you've ever seen that picture of Prabhupada boarding the boat? He's got a little suitcase, and he's walking. When I see that picture, I said, that is Prabhupada's success. He got on the boat. So we say, why don't you do this service? And I'm afraid you'll just try. Okay, I'll try. Your effort to try, now that's your success. And Krishna's saying, yes, thank you. Thanks for trying. And if you're anxious to be successful, Krishna will say, okay, I'll help you. You want to hear a funny story? I guess it's story night tonight. This is interesting. You will like this story. Some of you may have heard it. But we, in America, from about 1973, we were distributing books in airports. And the airlines weren't happy, but it was open to the public, and the laws in America allow you to distribute, even if it's like semi-government. Somehow we were able to distribute, but the airlines didn't really want us there because we were just disturbing their customers. And so at one point, they thought, if we do something to dissuade the devotees, they won't come back. So they sent the airport employees around to tell people that they don't have to take a book or they don't have to give a donation. I think they told people you don't have to give a donation, so they thought, we're giving out books, no one's going to give a donation. At a certain point, we won't come because we can't afford it. So the airport sent one person after me. She was a woman, a little older than me. And I'm like, okay, this is not working. It's not looking good. You don't have to give it, she'd say, you don't have to give a donation. And people go, okay. And they would just take the book and walk away, or they give the book back. And I'm like, what to do now? And I had an idea. So I'd give someone a book, and the lady, she would follow me. I'd give someone a book, and I'd say to the person, there's the book about this and that. We don't sell them, we just get donations. And you don't have to give a donation if you don't want to. Isn't that right, Miss Jones? And she'd say, yes, that's right. She didn't know what was going on. But because I'm with an airline employee, they all thought I was authorized to be there, and they all gave donations. Plus it was reverse psychology. You don't have to do this. No, I'll do it. It's like, thank you, Krishna. I wanted to do this service. Thank you for because I didn't know what to do. And I started telling everybody, wherever I went, you don't have to give a donation if you don't want to. It's like totally up to you. You can be an ass and not give. I didn't say that, but that's kind of the connotation. Thank you, Krishna. The other day, my wife said something. We were giving a seminar in Italy. She said something. I can't remember. It was so cool. And she said it, and I repeated it. I said, Janava, thank you. I said, Janava, that was so cool. She didn't even realize she said it. But it just stood out, So sometimes it's like that. You're just trying to do your service, and you say something amazing, or you do something amazing. So, that kind of faith we should have. According to Scripture, fear is not seeing Krishna everywhere. Not seeing that Krishna is your protector, that's where fear comes from. And so, sometimes we have this fear that, well, maybe I'll forget Krishna. Maybe I'll fall into Maya. That's a good fear. That's a healthy fear. We should. But maybe Krishna will protect me. That's not a healthy fear. I don't know if he'll protect me. That's not a healthy fear. That's a lack of faith. And I think, based on experience, that however you relate to Krishna in terms of your fear and his protection is how he's going to relate to you. So if you doubt he will protect you, he won't. Because that's what you believe and that's what you expect. And he says, okay, that's where you're at, then I'll reciprocate. Because he's always reciprocating, right? He's reciprocating with how you think and how you feel. So like if someone's an atheist, it's not that he shows himself. Because what's the point? Even if he does, they won't believe it. But, Prabhupada made the point, if someone's an atheist, they base their atheism on some kind of philosophy. And God gave them that philosophy. So the person they don't believe in gave them the philosophy to not believe in him. So he's always giving. Because that's what they want. They don't want, atheists have many arguments for the existence of God, which to them are very convincing. But they want those arguments to validate their disbelief in God. But God gave them those arguments. There was a really funny debate. This is so nice. I don't know if he was a priest or a pastor or what he was. He was having a debate with an atheist. And the atheist came up with these amazingly intellectually sophisticated philosophical arguments for the non-existence of God, like off the charts intelligent. And the pastor, let's say he was a pastor said, those arguments are amazing. They're so amazing it proves to me that there is a God, because unless there was a God, you're not that smart. Nobody's that smart that could think like that. Hare Krishna. What an argument. What could the atheist say? Abba, abba, abba. Yeah. So, Krishna reciprocates with your faith, or with the lack thereof of faith. Yes. So, don't pray out of fear. Krishna, please help me, because if you don't, I'm in a mess. But pray, Krishna, I know you will help me. I see it. Krishna, you know what I need. I have faith. That's the way to pray.
I meant more like being afraid of violent people, maybe, or something bad will happen to me.
Yeah.
That kind of.
But that's also
things
there.
I'm
That's
afraid
also
of.
there, and Krishna will protect you. Of course, you have to use your discretion. I spent time in South Africa. I actually lived there, and crime increased. So when I asked devotees from South Africa how the crime is, they all give the same answer. You just have to know where not to go, and what time, and the places you can go, you have to know what time not to go there also. And then you're fine. So it's not, we were joking this morning. I think it was this morning, You're driving up a mountain, big cliffs, you could fall over. You take your hand off the wheel and you go, Krishna, I have faith in you, that you will drive the car. It's not like that. It's not like you don't take precautions. But the highest form of faith is that, Krishna, I know you will protect me, and whatever you want, I accept it. And that's, when you watch the Prahlad movie, that's what Prahlad said. Maybe I will die, but it's okay if that's what Krishna wants. That's the high level of faith.
Thank you.
Faith is important. It's important because the problem is sometimes something can happen and it can cause you to lose faith. Krishna, why did you allow this to happen? But when there are difficulties, pure devotees don't lose faith. They never lose faith. They accept, this is what is meant to happen. We have faith in Krishna's protection. And at least we know he protects us spiritually. And that's important. It's important to have. And because also, it's like if Krishna says, I protect you, and you say, I don't think so. You imagine having a relationship, a loving relation with someone, and the person says, I love you, I always think of you, and I'm always protecting you, and so forth. And you say, well, I don't think so. Yeah, you'll be in divorce court the next day. Right? We do the same thing with Krishna, and we don't realize we're doing it. Krishna, I don't, especially he said, I don't think Krishna loves me. Well, it's not for you to decide, because he said he does. Right? I don't know if he loves me. Well, whatever. But that's not what he says. You can say whatever you want, but you should respect what he says. I don't know if he'll protect me. Well, he says he will. So you should believe what he says, not believe what your mind says or your past experience says. Because it's a relationship. And if someone's saying, I love you, I trust you, I'll protect you, and you say, I don't believe you, that's a dysfunctional relationship. So sometimes we're trying to be devotees, but we have a dysfunctional relationship with Krishna because we don't believe half the things he tells us. And Krishna's like, damn, this guy, I don't know what to do with him. He doesn't believe anything I say. We have this really bad relationship. Because we don't think of our relationship with Krishna like we think of it with ordinary people, but it's the same. He's a person. It's not different. And to think it's different because he's God, no. All the things that we experience is because he experiences them. So all the things we experience in a relationship, he experiences also. Otherwise we couldn't experience it. And then we try to think it's different with him. It's not. Krishna doesn't really want me to go back to him. Like, well, he says he does. So what's your evidence that he doesn't? Well, I don't really feel like if he sees me, he probably won't like me because nobody likes me. It's like, come on. Why are you putting that in Krishna saying, I have to, this is what you think about me? What's your evidence? What evidence do you have that I don't like you? That I would treat you like that? I'm going to treat you like your older brother who bullied you. There's no evidence. So how can you have a like in relationships, when you come into a new relationship and you've had a relationship that was bad, and the person does something that reminds you of the other relationship, although it has nothing to do with that, and you get upset, it's not fair to them, right? This one girl was physically abused, and she was talking to a man, and the man went to touch his hair, and she freaked out and screamed, because she was hit before. That's what you do, you raise your arm. So it's not fair. So we're putting so many doubts on Krishna based on our experience here. It's not fair to him. It's not good for the relationship, is it? You say you will protect me, but I have all these fears, and how can I believe you? So many of the spiritual problems we have are psychological. That's a psychological problem, to doubt Krishna in that way. We think it's a spiritual problem. I don't have faith. No, you have past experience that you're now pouring onto Krishna. It's not about faith. It's about hello, don't take your past bad experiences and throw them onto Krishna. Your parents were heavy with you and disciplinarian, dictator, and so God's now a disciplinarian. He's a dictator. No, he's not. But because your parents are, you think he is. It's not fair to you, is it? So don't do it. Bad idea. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have a question about preserving the legacy of Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
When we read the letters of Srila Prabhupada, when I read the letters of Srila Prabhupada, and also from verbal testimony from the disciples of him, it becomes clear that he didn't like change. He wanted to keep things as he gave them to us.
Yeah.
For the books, the program. I'll keep it short, the question. He gave the example, for instance, of his Guru Maharaj. He said he never compromised.
Yes.
And now I have the impression that, and it's already been going on for several years, that actually in quite a few communities and temples things are changing. That they make concessions to please the audience instead of Krishna.
Such as?
Introducing Hatha Yoga programs. Yesterday I was on a website. It's an ISKCON. I will not mention a name, but it's from ISKCON, and they called it "Experience an Atmosphere of Well-Being, Wellness, and Sustainability, and Experience the
It's a
Divine."
temple or a preaching center or a yoga center?
No, it was the Governor Eco Village. I can say that.
Oh, okay.
And they were speaking about the divine. And I saw Krishna's name nowhere. That's the main message. My impression is that this is to attract a certain audience and not try.
Were devotees doing it, or was it someone who rented the place out?
No, it's a website. It's an ISKCON. It's ultimately ISKCON. So
Because they rent that out to other, and they
maybe
do prasad.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, it could be.
It's just an example.
Yeah.
I have the impression that this is also happening in certain ISKCON centers.
Well,
so what do you think?
I can tell you a story.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't answer the question exactly, but I'll try to tie it. I have two stories. The first story was that Tamal Krishna Maharaj was with Prabhupada in India, and he was kind of burned out in India, and he wanted to come back to America. And he asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, you can go for a while, but you have to come back, because he was managing. He said, Prabhupada, I want to join my old friend Vishnu John. He has a bus, he's traveling, and I want to travel with him. You know, it's kind of like, sannyasis traveling, going to universities, preaching. It's the life, traveling with a bunch of brahmacharis, and you're just chanting and preaching, and if you've ever done that, it's really nice. So Prabhupada said, okay, you can do that. And then Prabhupada said, all right, and I'll come back to America, and then you'll come back with me. So then Prabhupada came back, and he said, Tamal, are you ready to come back? And so he said, no, Prabhupada, I'm not. It was it was like an agreement. He said, why? He said, because I'm preaching. And Prabhupada sarcastically said, what is that, preaching? It's like an excuse. I don't want to go back and take back my responsibility because I'm preaching. And Tamakar Maharaj is very intelligent, and he knew Prabhupada was going to ask that question, and he knew he had to show him what he was doing. So he said, Prabhupada, I will show you my preaching. And he brought up like 15 new devotees in dhotis and shaved head and tilak. And one by one they came in, they each offered a flower to Prabhupada, paid obeisances. And Prabhupada was, ear to ear, smiling, and he said, Prabhupada said, this is preaching, stay in America. So it was like a result. So that's just to put things in the context that often, it's not that Prabhupada didn't look at the process of how you did something, but he would evaluate it also with the result. So that's one story. But of course, they were just preaching. There's no compromise, Did you ever see that film called Spark of Life, made by Yadobar in the 1970s? It was a drama of two students, and they were arguing about evolution. So Yadobar had made many documentaries about our movement, and this was the first drama. It was like a half hour or something. And it was two students, they're devotee actors. And you see one student is going to his biology class and hearing about evolution from his professor. And the other student would meet him at lunch, and the other student would say, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita and it says this and that. And the other student would say, but in my biology class it says this and that. So they go back and forth, and they have scenes of the biology class. So they showed that to Prabhupada. And after they showed it, Prabhupada was with all his leaders. He said, what do you think? And Tamal Krishnamurti said, I think this movie is for women and children. This is nice, Just be happy you're not in ISKCON in 19... I mean, of course Prabhupada was there, but you go, oh, it's so great to be in ISKCON at the time. Yeah, but you have to deal with all this stuff, especially if you're a woman. And he said, it was a drama, and they're used to documentaries. So he said, Yadobar, what is the effect? He said, well, we just showed it last night, and after I showed it, a man came up to me and said, now I finally understand I'm not the body. Prabhupada said, then it's a success. I finally understand I'm not my body. And Prabhupada said, then it's a success. Because it accomplished something. So, I mean, it's hard to talk about what they're doing there and why they're doing it. And I always feel it's like, I hear a lot of devotees, like, they're giving a class or they're doing a podcast, and they're talking about somebody's preaching, but the person's not there to represent themselves, to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I can't represent it, but I do know this, that at Bhaktivedanta Manor they were thinking of doing weddings, and they asked Prabhupada about it, because these are weddings of non-devotees, and they asked him. They said, Prabhupada, we'll do kirtan and distribute prasadam. He said, oh, if you do kirtan and prasadam, then it's okay. So, all those people come, they get kirtan, they get prasadam, and they would never come otherwise. So I'm just guessing. But for me, if let's say they gave me that project and said, take it over. And I would say, well, what's the result of this? Because I always look at, well, you're putting time, money, and energy. What are you getting from it? kind of like a businessman, you know. And I look at Rath Yatra like that. It's a big expense. So, you know, we should do it, but because you could say, although Rath Yatra is very traditional, you said, well, what happens? Well, you know, a few hundred people chant, a few thousand people see us, a few thousand people take prasadam, and then $25,000 later, it's like, it's over, and we don't have any more bigger congregation of devotees. You could say that, you know, you could say it was a waste. So you give me that 25,000, I'll do something else. I'll do a yoga retreat, and I'll make 5 devotees or 10 devotees. So, you know, then you have to deal with those kinds of things. You know, that's how I look at it personally, you know. And but another thing also is I feel like if someone's organizing a program like this who has a lot of experience, like they're older devotees and they've been successful and they have a lot of experience, that I want to know. I kind of figure they have some strategy, and it's not just that. There's much more. That they got people there, but they're going to be doing things with them. So, and I think it takes a certain kind of person to do that, and I think there's a lot of devotees who wouldn't do it. It would go against their conscience, and that's okay also. But I think, to me, like, to do anything and get no result, what's the point? Why keep doing it? Whether it's straight or broad, or, you know, that's how I think. I have a little pet peeve with spending lots of money on Rath Yatra unless you're strategically planning how to bring people in. In Calcutta, they get 1 million people to their Rath Yatra. And every year, they offer a course in something, and they get about like 3,000 people to sign up for the course. So I go, that's good, you know. You invest 25,000, you can get 3,000 people, you know, to take a Bhagavad Gita course. Fantastic. Of course, they invest more than that. That's just how I think, and I can't really speak for them. But I can say this. I was just at Radhika Ranjanan's, he does a kirtan. We were in London a few weeks ago, and he did a kirtan. He's got like a weekly kirtan. He doesn't always do it, but he normally does, or often does it. And we're very expert in how he was bringing people in. After every kirtan, he's reading verse from Bhagavatam and talking about it, and explaining a lot of Krishna conscious things, but in a way that people, like, they can accept it, you know. So you could say he's compromising, but he didn't compromise on what he said, but it's just, you know, how it was spiced. So I was quite impressed because he didn't compromise. And that's not easy, you know, to get people to, like, because it's easy to turn people off, you know. Isn't it? You know, that's just
I
not hard.
like the answer, actually, that you have to look at the effect.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But I also see a danger if a speaker starts speaking about the divine instead of Krishna.
Yeah.
Then, in my experience, the divine is an impersonal expression.
Yeah, it could be.
And then you're going a different road.
You know,
Like,
I don't know about here
huh?
in your country, but in some places, if you say God, like, half the people will leave.
They're on the way.
Because
Yeah.
God has bad branding. I mean, I say God, but then I qualify this. It's not the God you think of. It's a different one. It's not the one who punishes and sends people to hell forever and makes you follow all kinds of rules. So I think we have to qualify it, but yeah.
But
It's not.
Is it okay to change your wording to prevent those people who are not interested anyhow, isn't it?
Well, if they're not interested anyhow, then definitely, what's the point?
Yeah.
But if you can get them interested, sometimes it's appetizer, you know, and that. Well, I just did a retreat in Italy, and there was a huge transformation over the 5.5 days of it between when the people came in. So, you know, sometimes you have to, like, give them some appetizer, but you have a plan. I know appetizer the first day, and then the main meal, they'll be ready the second or third day. Nobody wants to hide Krishna, but, you know, a little blue boy, you know, maybe on the first day. They're not ready for it. We have a book that I wrote. We just published it in Croatian and Slovenian. It's going to be published in English soon. And there's a chapter on it's called An Old Man with a Beard. An old man with a gray beard. Something like that, I think. That's the chapter. Vrindavan, where are you? Do you know that chapter? Have you gone through the book? Old Man, you know. It's about, it's a chapter on who God is. But it's explained in a way that it's not compromised, but it's like, God can't be an old man with a beard. It's not possible. So it takes some expertise, to like keep people moving. And not everybody has it, but still I would say, if you you had a preaching center and, Prabhupada came and he said, what's the result? He said, well, Prabhupada, we do this and that. Well, is anybody coming? I said, not really. We get some people, but they never come back. And someone else does something, maybe not so straight, but he's just made 4 good devotees and they're following, Prabhupada might say, well, why don't you see what he's doing? Something to think about anyway. So, but it is true, your method could just water it down so much that it's not right. But, did you know, when Prabhupada took sannyas, he said, I'm going to go to America and I'm prepared to serve them meat to get them to come. And then I will get them to chant and in a few days they will stop eating meat. And Bhakti Siddhanta, I think also. So that's, And then the other story when Prabhupada wanted some devotees to go to Eastern Europe during the communist time. The devotees researched it and they weren't sure that they could be vegetarian. He said, Prabhupada, I don't think we can be vegetarian there. I think we're going to have to eat meat. So we can't go. And Prabhupada said, no, eat meat if you have to. I mean, not cow. And he said, but what about my consciousness? You know that story? What about my consciousness? Prabhupada said, damn your consciousness. So it was like, here's an opportunity to like open Krishna consciousness up in the communist world, which for Prabhupada, it doesn't get any better than that. Go to the most difficult place, turn the atheist into theist. So I don't know if Prabhupada really believed that they would have to eat meat, but he was, it's you can't just like run with that idea, but at least these things are like if we have to, if nothing else works,
Sounds like breaking a lower principle for a higher principle.
And we used to do a festival in America. We would put a band together and we'd just do kirtan all day. And this festival was famous for people dancing with us. There'd always be a crowd during our kirtan. You know why they were dancing? Beer. Because all the dancing started, they'd all get there like around 11 noon. And by 4, they were all drunk, and that's when, before 4, no one was dancing. After 4, we had big crowds. So, I'm telling the devotees, maybe we should, instead of strawberry lemonade, we should just distribute beer, get more people dancing. We were somewhere. Oh yeah, we were in Croatia. I think I said that. We're in Croatia. We're like on the beach doing kirtan. Everybody's kind of like, la-di-da-da-da. And like, we should have distributed beer 2 hours ago. They'd all be dancing with us. Something even more funny, and I was almost serious at one point. Of course, I wouldn't do this, but in 1981, I went to South Africa. In South Africa, drugs are illegal, and if you're caught with drugs, you could be in prison for life. So South Africa, because they didn't have drugs, they never had a hippie movement. They didn't go through the whole thing that we did in the West, with psychedelics and like that. And so I'm going there and I'm talking to people, and South Africa at that time, I think it was the 3rd wealthiest country in the world. And the white people had pretty much enslaved the black people. So the black people were just like doing everything for them. So from the material perspective, their life was really good. They weren't frustrated. Like with us in the West, we were like, I've had it. We don't want materialism. We turned against it. There they didn't, and I was thinking, what am I going to do now? I said, I got an idea. we'll put LSD in the water supply. There'll be a whole hippie movement. They'll all get frustrated. They'll all realize just by on their LSD trips they're not the body, and then we'll be successful. I mean, because that's what happened in the West. That's why we were so successful, because people's experience with psychedelics was like, yeah, now I believe in God, I believe in afterlife, I get one trip on LSD, I believe in everything. Karma, reincarnation. Otherwise I have to give you a lecture for like 3 years to get you to believe it. Just take this pill. 6 hours later, you're good to go. So, you can't really do that. But, I just toyed with the idea in my mind, If, worst comes to worst, maybe we have to do that. So, what you say is valuable, and we have to, see how far we can go before it's, because here's the best way to answer your question. It's like, you ask this, let's say I'm doing a preaching program, and you're going, hey Mahatma, this is kind of wishy-washy, and you're saying the divine, and you're doing hatha yoga, and breathe in, say, oh, like, come on, Prabhupada never did that, Just breathe in and say, go, this mantra, go, people are doing that, So, a beautiful way to evaluate this is just imagine you're now sitting in front of Prabhupada and he's saying, what's up with this? And you have to explain it. And can you explain it in a way he'll say, okay? Or will he say, no? And you have to, think in your mind, could I convince him that this was worthwhile or not? We used to do a program in Washington, and we would get thousands and thousands in Washington, D.C. in America, thousands and thousands of high school kids coming every day to a tourist area of Washington, D.C., and we would get them all to chant and dance. But the only way we could do it is we had to have a drum machine, a synthesizer, a bass and guitar. And then, and they'd be walking by like this, you see them walking by. And then we pull them in while they're walking by. Hare Krishna, give them the card, and they chant with us, and all day they would chant. And Prabhupada wrote me a letter, and he said, when you're on Sankirtan, just mridanga and kartals, there I am playing the synthesizer. I'm like, okay, Prabhupada, I have to explain this to you, why we're doing this. Because if I go with the mridanga and kartals, and there's only 4 of us doing the kirtan, everybody walks by, they don't notice you. But those same 4, it's a rock and roll band. Bass, guitar, drums, keyboard, they stopped. And we made lots of devotees, so we didn't have any doubt. That was just the way to do it. But we have to, in our mind, be able to explain that to Prabhupada, that this is what we've done. And then there was this hardcore scene where these devotees were playing shelter and playing this music, which was like, to me it was just heavy metal. They called it punk, or I wasn't familiar with punk. And they're playing in clubs at like 11 at night. I went to see them once, and it's just like, have you ever heard it? Every song. Same thing again. I'm like, oh my God, what's this? They made so many devotees from that. And all the people in the audience were singing the words, Srimad Bhagavatam, light of the age of Kali. The words are completely Krishna conscious, 100%, 108%, totally. And everybody's singing it. And they're all like buying books, and they're all following the 4 regs.
Yeah.
That scene.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, can I go to Prabhupada and say, this is why we're doing this? I think so. I think he would say, okay. Because look at, so that's the way I see it. Can you explain this to Prabhupada? And if you can, do it. And if you're like, I don't know if I could, maybe you shouldn't. That's my philosophy also. Or try it and see what happens. Is it, okay, I'm going to try to do this yoga thing. What happened? It was nothing. It just did yoga. And, a lot of people who like yoga, but nothing happens. So it's like, okay, well, forget that one. At least you can try it and analyze it. Don't blindly continue. That's what I do. Yes?
Would you do a small kirtan?
Can we do another smart? We can. How about a big one?
15 minutes.
Why does it?
15 minutes.
Oh yeah, I also have books. Well, over here we have books. And we have all kinds of things.